Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you? My name is Trishala Punjabi. I am the subject matter at GMAT, and today we are going to have a session about advanced CR masterclass. We already had one session before, which is about covering the basics of CR. The link is there in the description as well as in the comment box. So, yeah, do have a look at it if you haven't already. If you have already seen the session, welcome back. If not, hello, great meeting you guys. A little bit about myself. I took the GMAT, I think around 6, 7 months ago, and I scored a V90. But when I started, my first score was a 395. So, yeah, I came a long way. And today I'm here to teach you the exact things that helped me get there. And hopefully, it will help you guys as well. Perfect. So, in this session, we're going to be covering three things. One is boldface, second is inference, and third is evaluate question. It is going to be a 3 hour session. So, keep your water ready, be well nourished and, let's get started. We did already cover strength and weaken assumption in the first session, but to get to that level, usually difficult types of questions are boldface, inference, and evaluate. And today we're going to give you a framework for each and every one of them, and we'll be discussing boldface for the majority of the time because it does seem like a very difficult question. A very funny thing is that there's like this myth going on that if your exam is going well, if your GMAT is going well, you're going to get a boldface question. And I remember I was like taking my GMAT and I was like, damn, I did not get a boldface question. My exam must not be going that well. But it did end up going well. So, yeah, so boldface is typically known like it's a notorious type of question. But honestly, it's not that hard. Yes, and then the remaining time we'll be covering inference and evaluate. First rules. Hello, Swarupa. The rules are number one. You solve first, I teach after. You have to be very active. You have to solve. Second is that if you answer wrong, like nothing could be better. The best learning today will come for the wrong answers. And third is that this is going to be full of traps. Okay. It is going to be a complete minefield, and I want you to fall into them so that you learn how to spot them on test day. Okay. Before we start, I would like to know from you guys, where are you from and what are your top struggles in CR? I want to get some context before we start. I'll just start with myself. I'm Trishla. I'm from Ahmedabad. Oh yeah, I require a lot of participation, guys. I'm gonna be really annoying about this. I'm just warning you. I'm gonna be like participate, participate, participate. So yes, tell me, where are you guys from and what are your top struggles in CR? CR, boldface, anything is fine. I'm gonna wait for 10 seconds and then we'll move on. Okay. All right. So we will start with boldface. So honestly, if you understand CR, boldface actually can become the easiest question type. If you think about strengthen, weaken, assumption, what happens in those question types is that you do have to think about the answer. You do have to think about something which is not already given in the argument. But in boldface, the answer is right there. Everything that you need is already given in the argument. You just have to identify it. So once you have the proper framework for it, it actually becomes like the easiest thing for you. Okay, we have Swaroop here. You're looking for appearing on GMAT in July. You'd like to connect with me regarding GMAT class program. Yes, so I am coming here on behalf of eGMAT. Everything that we are covering today, that is like the eGMAT methodology. And I think if you want to actually try it out, you can definitely try out a free trial. And then based on that, you can decide how it goes with you. Great. Achal from Lucknow, assumption. All right. So, Achal, you would love our previous session. We specifically covered assumptions in that session. So, that'll be very useful for you. Okay. And Swarup, you'll have to go. No worries. I think we can just log into eRemat. I think that will be good. All right. So, what we will start with is something known as the magic table, where we will be able to eliminate 2 to 3 wrong answers in just 10 seconds. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then after eliminating those wrong answers, I'll show you exactly what to do with the rest of them. Ansh, Sai, Pratap, hello. Oh, hi, Ansh. What's up? Nice to see you again. Lovely. Great. So our boldface process remains, it's a 5-step process. First thing is read actively, understand the entire argument completely. Second is find the conclusion, which is your anchor. So I see that there are a couple of people from the previous session as well. Great to see you guys. So in weaken and strengthen, conclusion was essentially our target, that we were supposed to either weaken the conclusion, we were supposed to strengthen the conclusion. In assumption, we were supposed to find the gap in the conclusion. In boldface, conclusion is going to be our anchor. Conclusion is something through which we will identify and define where boldface 1 and boldface 2 are standing. Okay? 3 is we'll build up a magic table where we will check each boldface against the conclusion. Then we will use the table to eliminate answer choices. And then we will check every survivor word by word. And when I say precision, I mean even one wrong word and the entire answer is dead. Okay? All right, let's get started with this question. I'm going to give you guys approximately 3 minutes for this, because the thing is that all of these are 8 or 5 plus questions. Like, I have not put in any question which is, even like a little bit easy. So you are going to have a little bit of a hard time, but it's okay. At the end of it, you're going to learn a lot. So yes, you have 3 minutes for this, and I will shut up now. As soon as you're done with the question, please drop your answers in the comments. So we have one E on board and one B. Okay. I'd like to hear from a little few more of you, and then I'll reveal the answer choice. Don't fire Neeraj, we are going to learn by doing. So with every single question, I'm going to show you how to approach that question, how we can basically use the framework in that question and apply it to other questions. I'll wait for like 1 or 2 more answers and then I'll move on. D, okay. Okay, so we have two E's, one B, one D. As usual, there's not a lot of unanimity. One E, okay, so we have 3 E's now. All right, so let's first go into this. Like, what is the main conclusion in the argument? I should paste this argument here. What is the main conclusion? Alok, I'm assuming you have D for the previous one, or is it for this question? Guys, tell me the conclusion here. I'm confused. What are you answering D2? B. Mm-hmm. Main conclusion. I want to hear from more of you. What do you think it is? A. Okay. And if you are getting this question wrong, I would recommend that you should also go back to the first session that we had, where we specifically had conclusion drills on how to identify and find the conclusion. So, Pranjal, if you can share your answer, that also will be good. So, I got a couple of A's, a lot of A's actually. 1C. Okay. This is surprising. Okay. What else? Okay. So, the answer here actually is D. That is actually what the author wants you to believe, which is basically the time and field explanation. I'm gonna take some time explaining this. So, what is happening in this passage, right? A, basically what you guys talked about, that is the observation. If you look at this, it says that scientists typically do their most creative work before the age of 40. So that is something which is a kind of like an observation. That is something which normally happens, right? And the entire argument is to basically figure out what exactly is happening. Why is that happening? Okay. Then there are two schools of thought. The first school, it is commonly thought that this happens because aging by itself brings a loss of creative capacity. So this is basically like the common view that is there, right? That because people age, they are not that creative anymore, which is why scientists do their most creative work before the age of 40. However, studies show that scientists who, let's take a breath here, whenever, however, is mentioned in any particular passage at all, be it RC, be it CR, anything. However, just signifies like a turn. You know, it's like the passage is going in one direction. However, means there's some kind of a turning point in the passage. Okay. So this says that, however, studies show that of scientists who produce highly creative work beyond the age of 40, a disproportionately large number entered the field at an older age than usual. So again, what is happening here? This is basically a study. This is a fact. There was a study, and that study showed this one particular finding. Right. What did that study show? That, listen, you were saying that it's aging, but actually, if we look at, let's say, 10 scientists who actually did creative work beyond the age of 40, like 7 of them entered the field at a later age. So, this is an actual study finding. Now, this says that since by the age of 40, again, take a pause here. What does since mean? Tell me, you guys, what does since mean to you? Quickly, what does since mean? Since is a premise indicator. So since is basically saying like essentially that okay, uh, because blah 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 blah, hence this, right? So since is like basically a premise. So since by the age of 40, the large majority of scientists have been working on the field for at least 15 years. The study's findings strongly suggest that the real reason why scientists over 40 rarely produce highly creative work is not that they've aged, but rather they've generally spent too long in their field. So this is a very long sentence. Let us break down what is happening here. Right. What is happening is that, we have like the entire argument, the entire finding, which is basically scientists are doing the creative work before the age of 40. Normally, it's like, okay, because, the commonly thought thing is because they have a loss of creative capacity, because they have aging, there's a loss of creative capacity. But because of this study, which showed that like, of like highly creative work beyond the age of 40, a lot of them entered at an older age. This entire argument is saying that the real reason why the creative work is there is because they have spent too long, not because they have aged. So it's a competing explanation. There is one explanation that is given, which is explanation of age. Second one is the competing explanation, which is given by the argument, which is basically that it's about time and field. The loss of creativity is not because of age, it is because of time and field. Does this make sense? Are you guys able to understand the argument? Yes, no, maybe so. Should I move on? Are you guys able to understand why this is the main conclusion? What is the point of the argument? It's saying that the finding is not false, but the finding is because they have spent too long in the field. Perfect, perfect. Great. So, again, like as I mentioned, there are two competing explanations. One is the common view, which is challenged by the argument that aging causes loss. Second is the author's view. The time in the field causes the loss in the argument. So, if we look at boldface one, what is boldface one? It is essentially evidence, right? It is essentially a fact. It's essentially, okay, this is what apparently like something that the study said. Okay, and what is boldface 2? We already established boldface 2 is the main conclusion that the real reason is time in field and not aging. Now that this is clear to all of you, and if it is not clear, please feel free to cut me at any point. Please feel free to put in a comment about your exact doubt and I will address it. Right. So for every single boldface question, I want you guys to make this thing, which I call the magic table. So what you're going to do is, as I said, you have to make conclusion the anchor, right? And then you have to see how the boldface is for, against, or neutral towards the anchor, right? So you have to see that, okay, is the boldface one for the conclusion or against the conclusion? Boldface 2 for the conclusion, against the conclusion. And boldface 1 and boldface 2, are they on the same side or are they on opposite sides? So if you are taking notes, please take this down. If you're not taking notes, please screenshot this. This is extremely important and it'll help you cut down a lot of answer choices right off the bat. Okay, so what is happening here? Is boldface 1 on the same side of the conclusion? Tell me, is it on the same side? Yes, no, maybe. Tell me. Think about it. Okay, I got one yes. Anyone else? Okay. So it is yes, right? So if we think about it, what is the argument's conclusion? What is the exact conclusion? It's saying that it is the time in field that causes, that causes the actual loss of creativity, not age. And what is boldface one? What is boldface one saying? That of scientists who produce highly creative work, a disproportionately large number enter the field at an older age than usual, right? So basically, BF1 is evidence for the conclusion. How is the author, able to say that, like, with like such gusto that, oh, you know what, it is because of time in field, because of this particular evidence, because of this particular study. So essentially, BF1 is on the side of the conclusion. Is this clear? Because if scientists enter the field later and they're still creative after 40, this supports the fact that the time and field is what is mattering and not the age. Great. So the answer here is yes. Okay. And again, I mean, it does take like a little bit, it takes a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to do quite well over here. But I hope it is clear to everyone why it is a yes. Now think about boldface 2. Is it on the same side of the conclusion? I don't even have to ask you guys because boldface 2 is the conclusion, right? So boldface 2 is the conclusion, so that is a yes. So how do we feel like, so yeah, are BF1, BF2 same side of each other? Obviously, yes. Both of them are on the side of the conclusion. So if we fill the magic table, BF1 side of the conclusion for yes, BF2 for the conclusion, both of them same side. Okay, now let's do an answer choice analysis. And I'm going to show you how you analyze each and every single answer choice. First, you read the first part, okay? The first is an objection that has been raised against a position which is defended in the argument. So basically, this is like very confusing, convoluted language. And that's how, they try to trap you in boldface by using convoluted language. But all you need to do is just simplify. What is it saying? It's against a position in the argument, which means what? It is against the argument. What have you already figured out? That boldface 2 is for the, boldface 1 is for the argument. cancel right away. We did not even need to read the second part. We did not even need to sit and analyze what's been happening, right? We could just see that, okay, is it for, against, out, right? Extremely quick, surgical. Second one, first is evidence that's been used to support an explanation the argument challenges. Simple as that. For or against. Argument challenges, that means against. So BF1 we know for a fact is for, C and D out. So do you realize that without even thinking, without even like figuring out, oh, what does this mean? Is it evidence? Is it used to support? Is it an explanation? Just figuring out the fact whether it is for the argument or against the argument, we could cancel out three choices right off the bat. Before we go ahead, any doubts? And the reason that I'm going to keep asking you this again and again and again is because boldface is a teeny tiny bit complicated. So I want you guys to be crystal clear before I move forward. And that's the thing. Like, this is it's essentially like, I like to think about it like boldface is kind of like the elephant, like eating an elephant, right? So there's a common saying, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's, bite by bite. So that's how we are doing the entire boldface process. Perfect. So 3 answers dead in literally just 10 seconds. Okay. So one more thing. So when 2 boldfaces are on the same side, you kill any answer that splits them. And when they are on opposite side, you kill any answer that puts them together. Okay. So based on this table, you can like do a lot. Now we have 2 options. We have option number A and option number E. So now we have to go with the surgical precision. The first is a claim. So first of all, when you read, okay, is it a claim? That's why you need to like figure out, okay, is it a claim? The accuracy of which is at issue in the argument. If we go back to 1, right? If we go back to boldface 1, where are we over there? What is boldface 1? Yeah, it says that of scientists who produce highly creative work. Is there anything in the passage which says that, okay, this is false? That, oh, you know what, this study is false? No. The accuracy of it is not at issue in the argument. All right. So this is out right away. Like, we honestly did not even look at the second boldface. We haven't even seen the second part of the exam. Of the answer choice. Just by seeing the first, we are able to remove this. Pranjal, that depends. Usually, if you're doing well, you do tend to get a little more boldface question because they do tend to be slightly more difficult. But yeah. That's why it's like a V90 kind of thing. All right. Where are we? All right. And now we have the only remaining answer, which is answer number E. The first provides evidence to support an explanation the argument favors. What does this mean? For the argument. Second is that explanation. What does it mean? For the argument. Are they both on the same side? Absolutely. Every word checks out. Right? So very, very easily, this complicated question we could do without getting into a lot of details, without getting into a lot of specifics on the answer choice, just because we labeled it all beautifully. Any doubts? And tell me your learnings before we step on to the next question. I'm going to wait for 20 seconds. There's a bit of a lag here. So whatever you say, I might get them a little later. But yeah, tell me what you learned from this and then we'll move on. Or if you have any doubts, please share your doubts. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll slow down. Okay. I will move on. Do this question. Meanwhile, if you have any doubts, please feel free to put them. But also parallelly to this question. Okay. So I'll just show the table once again. So what is happening in every table is that first we have to identify the conclusion. All right. What exactly is the conclusion? Then we have to check 3 things. Third one is basically, it's an obvious thing. You don't even have to check that. But essentially 2 main things. Is our boldface 2 on the side of the conclusion? Is it for supporting the conclusion or is it against the conclusion? It could be neutral also, right? So is it for, against, or neutral? Boldface 2, is it supporting the conclusion, for, against, or neutral? And I'll also tell you the reason why we do that is because conclusion is essentially the main point of the argument. The argument is always going to agree with the conclusion because conclusion is like the pinnacle. Everything in the argument is leading up to that main conclusion. So we have to see that out of the two boldfaces, usually there will be certain things where it will either be for the argument or against the argument. And a very simple way to find whether it's for the argument or against the argument is figuring out if it is for or against the conclusion. Is this clear, Rohan? Okay. And you could see that using that, we could literally do the entire thing so quickly. Awesome. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this session, it is this. But I'm going to say this quite a lot. So, yeah. Okay. You have 3 minutes. Please go for this one. Okay. Ankit, yes. Ankita. Oh, my bad. Ankita, yes, this will be available to watch after the live ends in the exact same session. It's the exact same link. Okay, we have gotten 2 Ds so far. Okay, 3 Ds, alrighty. 1A. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have a majority of people who are inclined towards D. 1% towards A. Would love to hear from you guys. What was your reasoning? Why did you pick D? Love to know your reasoning. D, A. Okay. While you put your reasoning down, I'm gonna just go a little bit. Hmm. Tell me this. What is the point of this argument? What is the argument seeking to establish? A, B, C. Give me fresh answers here, guys. I'll just show you the argument once again. What is the argument seeking to establish? Why the executors are buying shares? Why the depositors reason the way they did, or whether the depositors' reasoning is sound? Okay. I gotten 2 C's so far. I want more. 5 more seconds. Anyone thinks it's A or B? So let us look at this argument, okay? Explain is why, evaluate is whether. So if I tell you guys that Priya is vegan, that is because she grew up in a household where nobody ate meat and she never developed a taste for it. What am I doing? Am I explaining why Priya is vegan or am evaluating whether she should be? And I want more participation from you guys. More you participate, more you will get value out of this. It's in direct proportion. Tell me, what is this passage doing? Is it explaining why Priya is vegan or evaluating whether she should be? And there is a difference between explain and evaluate. So in this, it is clear, right, that there's no evaluation happening. There's a direct explanation. Why is she vegan? It is because she grew up in a household where no one ate meat. Okay? This is a classic example of an explanation. Now, let us look at this. Priya says being vegan is healthier. However, this belief is questionable since several studies show no significant health difference between vegan and non vegan diets. What is this statement doing? Is it explaining or evaluating? Right, Mayank. Here she is clearly evaluating. Here it's clearly evaluation, right? Evaluation means that there is some amount of skepticism. There is some amount of opposition. There is some amount of, evaluating some pros, cons. So it's like, Priya says that being vegan is healthier, but the entire statement is kind of questioning it. This belief is questionable because since several studies have shown no significant health difference. Let us get back to the argument. What is the argument doing? Is this argument explaining or evaluating? Tell me. Is this argument explaining or evaluating? There's some kind of fact that is happening that several of the bank's executives have been buying shares. What is happening in this? I'm going to wait for you guys to answer here because this is a very, very interesting thing. Are we explaining or evaluating Boldface 1? This is a clear, very, very clear cut evaluation. It's not as it's, the argument is not saying that, several of them, they have been buying shares in their own bank because, they might be this, because they might be that. That the entire point of the argument is not explaining. Very good, Rohan. You use the word whether reasoning is over optimistic and not why it is optimistic, right? The entire thing in this, it is not a why, it is a whether. Very good, guys. Anchal, outside of spot, Rohan, Ansh, very nice. It is an evaluation. So, tell me, you guys, is option D correct or not? Knowing the fact that this entire argument is evaluating boldface one, and not explaining. Is option D correct? Very good, Ansh. Beautiful. Option D is not correct. Why? Because again, surgical precision. The first, Aman E also says the exact same thing, right? The first describes the circumstance the argument seeks to explain. The argument has never sought to explain boldface one. They are very clear about that. The argument's not like, okay, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why they are buying shares. Mhm. The argument is evaluating what it means. The argument is questioning it. Yeah, you are right. You're right there, Mayank. Absolutely right. It is not supporting um, the conclusion. And I'll come to that. I'll come to that. Very interesting point you raised there, Mayank. I'll come to that. Okay. So are you guys clear that it cannot be D and it cannot be E because it is false? Or is there still some doubt there? I will I will specifically deal with this one. Specifically deal with this. But yes, are you guys clear about why it is not D and E? Okay. Perfect. All right, now I'll follow the normal thing. What is happening in the passage? If we go on to passage understanding, there is some situation, right? Executives are buying shares and depositors were worried, who are basically now relieved. So, what is the depositor's reasoning? That because executives are buying, so there must be some kind of faith in the bank, hence the rumors must be false. And what is the author's response? That such reasoning might as well be over optimistic. Why? Because executives might buy strategically. All right. So, what is the main conclusion here? Tell me, what is the main conclusion? I really wish there was no lag. Right. Ouch. What is the main conclusion though? And whoever is getting any of the conclusion part wrong, do go back to the first video and do the conclusion drills that we have there. Fantastic, Rohan. You're right. The reasoning might be over optimistic, right? Such reasoning might as well be over optimistic, and that is the author's final judgment. Perfect. Very good. Aman, Shweta. Fantastic. Anchal, you're asking why is there a doubt in the bank executives taking shareholding in the banks? I did not understand that question. Okay. Please explain what exactly you mean, and then we'll go ahead with that. Before we do this, I want to ask you guys this: is those worrisome rumors must be false a conclusion? Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, no. So the conclusion is like the final statement. It's not a why. So the conclusion here is that such reasoning might well be over optimistic. That is a final thing that the argument is building towards. And why it is happening? Because it was like it was a calculated attempt. Because of that, it is something which is over optimistic. Okay. Yeah. Tell me this. Is those worrisome humors must be false a conclusion? And I want to hear from like a lot of you on this because this is a very, very, very important part of Boldface. You don't think it's a conclusion? Okay, Mayank. No to the argument. Couple of people are saying no. Okay, Satyam, why do you think it's a yes? Because why not Y3I? Yes. An intermediate conclusion? Yes, Rohan. I get it. Aman is also saying it's an intermediate conclusion. Do you guys remember what a conclusion is from the first session, whoever attended it? A conclusion is something where that statement, the answer of the why, can be answered from the passage. So if you are supposed to find out, okay, is this a conclusion or not, the answer of whatever statement that is should be in the passage. So let us look at it. It is the conclusion. Why? Because we can answer the why, which is from the argument. What is, the worrisome rumors must be false. Why must those worrisome rumors be false? Because the bank executives have been buying shares in their own bank. It is a conclusion. It is not the argument's conclusion. It is the depositor's conclusion. What is happening in the argument? It's because there is some circumstance which has happened where a lot of bank top executives have been buying shares. Because of that, depositors concluded that, oh, now we don't need to worry. Now we are relieved because, apparently since they are buying, the rumors must be false. Now, what the argument is saying is that such reasoning might as well be over optimistic. Why? Because the corporate executives have been known to buy shares in their own in a calculated time, blah blah. Right? That is the entire structure of the argument. There are basically, it's like a debate, right? There's two things at play. One is what the depositors think and the depositors' conclusion, and second is what the argument says and the argument's final conclusion. Right, absolutely, Aman. We need to focus on the author's conclusion, but in boldface, we do need to identify all parts correctly. Right, so in boldface, because anything can be asked from any part, so we need to know whether any particular sentence, any particular phrase is a conclusion or not. Yes, because the statement uses must. Not just that, Ansh, but if you look at the structure of the argument, I think the very good way to figure out if something is a conclusion or not is basically just to ask, am I able to find the answer of it in the argument? If you are, then that's one of the conclusions, right? It could be the main conclusion, it could be the intermediate conclusion, it could be the author's conclusion, and it could be the conclusion of a third party. But it is a conclusion. All right. So that is something which is the depositor's main conclusion. Okay. So we have covered this so far, that it is a conclusion. We have covered that the entire argument is evaluating and not explaining. All right. So now what do we have here? Now that we have all of this, right? What do you guys think of A and B? Both of them have the same part of the first statement. The first describes evidence that has been taken as supporting a conclusion. Do you think it's correct? Just the first part, A and B. Or incorrect? Tell me. And tell me why. B. I don't want the answer. Just tell me whether you think the first part is correct or not. Just the first part. The first describes evidence that has been taken as supporting a conclusion. Why is that correct? And Mayank, to you too, because you asked this one question. Something you had asked. Yeah. But you don't think the first boldface is supporting the conclusion. Fantastic, Aman. Spot on. The argument never once said that this is talking about the main conclusion of the argument. What is it saying? So they did like very smart wordplay here, the makers. The first describes evidence that has been taken as supporting a conclusion. It has never, ever, ever been mentioned that whether it is a depositor's conclusion or whether it is the argument's conclusion, it has been taken to support a conclusion. And because of that, the first part of the argument is correct. And I know like it could seem a little bit complicated, so far, but that's what you need to do. Like take it piece by piece by piece. All right. And then hopefully it should become easier. Okay. So we know that D is out. We know that E is out. We know that the first part of A and B are correct, and C is out. Why? Because of the magic table. It says the first provides evidence in support of the main conclusion of the argument. The first is actually against the main conclusion. So I think that is clear to everybody. So now it is between A and B. Now I want you guys to do this question again and tell me whether it is A or B. And I hope that I have been clear so far. Please feel free to stop me. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have them. Yeah, tell me. Well, is it A or B? Or if you're confused as to if it could be C, then you can mention that too. Okay, Rohan, you're saying A. Aman, you're saying B. Mayank, you're saying B. Okay. What have we already talked about since? What is since? If something starts with since, what does this mean? Is since a conclusion indicator or a premise indicator? Correct, Rohan, it's a premise indicator. So the second is not the main conclusion of the argument. We have already identified that, right? What is the main conclusion? That such reasoning might well be over optimistic. Why it might well be over optimistic? Because they are known to buy shares in their own company. So, what is the main conclusion of the argument? That such reasoning might well be over optimistic. So, how can the answer be B when we know and we have all been on a consensus that the conclusion is that such reasoning might well be over optimistic? Great. Yeah, the answer is A, don't worry. I know I'm trying to gumao you guys, trap you guys, but yeah, the answer is actually A. So, does this make sense to all of you? And I know it is a lot more complicated than a normal strength. And it seems a lot more complicated because there's a lot of things you have to think about. You have to think: is it evidence or not? Is it supporting or not? Is it a conclusion or the conclusion? Is the second Boldface a conclusion or a premise? But with the entire thing in mind, so what do you do? So right now, when I asked you questions, I just want to put this thing out. When I asked you questions, you guys could answer almost all of them correctly, right? You did not have a lot of doubts there. When I asked you explain versus evaluate, you could get that. When I asked you what the conclusion is, you could get that. So, what you need to do when you are doing a boldface question is that you need to ask yourself these questions. Okay, so let's say that you are doing this question fresh. What do you need to do? You need to first understand the entire argument, what is happening. Then you need to find out the conclusion that such reasoning might well be over optimistic. Then you need to make the table, which one is for, which one is against. That means that C will be out. Then you look at A, B, and D, E. Both of them have the same first line. So you can just focus on the first line. It says that first has been taken evidence supporting a conclusion that could still be right because it supported the depositor's conclusion. D and E said the circumstance argument seeks to explain. Now that you know the difference between explain and evaluate, you're not going to take D and E. Then you have A and B. You just have to decide between the two. In B the second in A the second boldface says that reason for questioning that support, which is correct. It's not a conclusion. B says second states a contrary conclusion. Again, that's not something that we are doing because we already know that the conclusion is that such reasoning might well be over optimistic. It is a lot of process, a lot of moving parts, but once you do it enough and once you do it often and once you do it using the exact same process, it will become easier. All right, now tell me doubts, tell me questions, and tell me learnings. If you have any doubts, I would love to address them. Why is something the answer, why something that's not the answer? Any doubt on the process at all? And what have you learned so far? I really need to know from you guys what you have learned so far. All good? Okay, great. Rest of you, do feel free to drop your doubts in the comments whenever you want. since it's not always a premise indicator. In this context, it is. And you cannot even answer it, properly uh, from the argument. And this for sure is definitely not the main conclusion of the argument. The main conclusion is that such reasoning might well be over optimistic. And by the way, if any of you got any of the conclusion questions wrong, before you start Boldface, go back to session one and do the conclusion drills. If you are not very, very well versed with conclusion, Boldface is going to be a very big challenge. But once you know what a conclusion is, it's going to be much easier. Because a lot of Boldface is meant on like that. Is based on conclusions. Okay. Aren't you explaining versus assuming? Yes. Perfect. Okay. Right. I think we have everything cleared. And we'll go with this question. So this is an 805 plus question. I mean, it's a very, very confusing question, but follow the exact same process. And I'm sure that you guys will be able to do a good job. Okay, we have gotten 2Ds. One, two, three, four people saying, okay, so many people saying D, okay. And one person saying E. Okay. All right. Now, let us look at this argument systematically, step by step. One more E. Okay, nice. All right. So, what is the main conclusion here? It is, it is Rohan. Just look little carefully. What is the main conclusion here? So we got a couple more E's. I think it's half of you are saying D and half of you are saying E. Okay, tell me. Project is not massive enough. Perfect. I mean, if you want it to be, yes, I love this one. It is not enough to achieve the goal. So what is it? What is the main conclusion? That it is probably not massive enough to achieve the goal. That is the author's final judgment. So if we look at what is happening in this entire argument, so, first, essentially, they are saying that, okay, in order to achieve self-sufficiency, Hazarian government proposes to construct 11 huge hydroelectric power plants. So, this is essentially the entire plan that the Hazarian government has. Why? Because they want to have self-sufficiency. Although it's a massive project, it is probably not massive enough to achieve the goal. So it's basically they're saying that, it is a massive, but it's not that massive that you will achieve the goal. And that is the core conclusion of the argument. I'm very glad that all of you could recognize it really well. It is true that adding the projected output to the output that Hazara can achieve now would be enough to meet the forecast demand. It will, however, a turn in the argument, take at least 15 years, and by then, majority of the Hazaria's current power plants will be too old to function at full capacity. So basically, it's like, why is it not massive enough? Because, by the time you actually go and build up the entire 11 hydroelectric power plants, Hazaria, the current plants will be pretty much too old. So you'll not be able to fulfill on the plan, right? So if we look at, our magic table, what is happening? Is BF1 on the side of the conclusion or against the conclusion? It's neutral, right? It's like a plan or subject of the argument, not necessarily for or against. Is BF2 for or against the conclusion? Overall, it is, turning away from the conclusion. It's pointing in opposite direction. All right. So now, if we look at none of you chose A, B, or C, it's very like a quick no. A argument provides support, argument is not supporting the plan. Same reason B is out. C says against but possible alternatives. There is no alternative mentioned in the passage. Okay. So now we are between D and E, which is like what half of you picked. All right. Let me ask you guys this. Is BF2 accurate? Tell me. Is it accurate? Yes or no? Is it accurate? I really need to know this from you guys. And don't worry about giving the wrong answer. Honestly, it doesn't matter. In fact, the more wrong answers you give right now, the better it is for you because you will see exactly where your gap is. And I'm not here to judge you. Tell me, is BF2 accurate? Yes or no? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, I have gotten 3 yeses and 2 nos. All right, 4 yeses. Let me give you an example. Okay. Don't worry, Ansh. We are going to get to this. So let's say I'm giving you an argument. Okay. I'm saying that it is true that ice cream is bad for health, but it can really make children happy. So we should distribute ice cream on our child's birthday. Is the question one statement that ice cream is bad for health true according to this argument? Tell me this. Is this statement true or not? And if you're saying it's not true, I want to eat the ice cream that you guys are eating, which is apparently good for health. It's a very obvious thing, right? that ice cream is bad for health is true according to the argument. Now, yes, very good, Ansh. Now, does ice cream is bad for health point towards giving ice cream or away from giving ice cream? I need guilt-free ice cream, yes. Tell me, does this entire thing, is this a statement, the true statement that ice cream is bad for health towards that the fact that we should distribute ice cream or away from the fact that we should distribute ice cream? Away, away. Very good. It is away, right? And here I would like to really bring up what you asked here. Why, yes, it is countered in the next line, right? Something can be true and it can be that something that points away from the conclusion. Just like here, we are saying that it is true that ice cream is bad for health. It's like a pros and cons thing, right? The con is that it is bad for health, but because children like it so much, and it's like, once in a while, so we should give ice cream to them. So we evaluated the pros and cons, and then we came to the final conclusion that we should give ice cream. But that does not mean that ice cream is not bad for health. That is a consideration, that is a true consideration, but it is just outweighed by the fact that we want to make children happy. Does this make sense? Yes, no, maybe. Ansh, are you clear now? Why, yes, even if it was countered in the next line? And I'm paying extra attention to this because this does show up quite a lot in a lot of different CR questions. And that something is said that, okay, you know what? I'm not saying, like, let's say you're arguing with someone and someone gives a point. You're like, I'm not saying that your point is wrong. Your point could be true, but this is something which outweighs your point. Hence, I'm right. Right? And that's how you should argue. You should never say, like, you're wrong. So, yeah, similarly, what is happening in the Hazaria question? It is saying that it is true that adding output would be enough. The argument is explicitly stating it's giving it to us on a plate. But it is true, it is literally accurate. It is pointing away from the conclusion, but that does not mean that it is not true. It is the exact same language. All right, so it is true. That means BF2 is accurate. Now, I want you guys to do this question again. Mixing feelings while coming to a conclusion, not going with a factual statement. I did not understand your doubt, Ansh. Could you please reiterate it? And for the rest of you, I want you guys to make a choice again between D and E. If you're clear that BF2 is accurate. Okay, Aman, you're saying E. What about the others? Is it D or E? One more E. Whoever said E, I also want to know why. Whoever picks D, I still want to know why. I got in one more E. Want to know the reasoning behind that. Does anyone think it's D at this point of time? Okay. We have established the fact that BF2 is accurate. It literally says it is true. That, right? And what does this statement say, D? But the argument maintains is inaccurate. It is directly going against the argument. The argument has never said that it is inaccurate, right? So because of that, D is wrong. But there's still a lot of people who did choose E, so I want to get into, did not choose E, so I want to get there as well. Okay. Tell me this. Does BF2 support the arguments evaluation of the plan? Yes, no, maybe so. Does BF2 support the arguments evaluation of the plan? This is the question, and this is the boldface. Tell me, does it support the arguments evaluation of the plan? I will show you the argument again. Does it support the arguments evaluation of the plan? Ten more seconds. It absolutely does. Right? Like, let us assume that you are a judge. Okay, and you have two parties. You have like the prosecutor and you have the defendant. The prosecutor gives you, like lots of evidence that, okay, there's a fingerprints of the weapon, there was a motive, there was an alibi. Defendant also gives you pieces of evidence that you have a character witness, medical condition, phone records, all of that. In the end, as a judge, you rule that, okay, you know what, this person is guilty, right? So that is something which you as a judge rule, you evaluate it, right? So just because the judge ruled guilty doesn't mean that the judge did not evaluate what the defendant said. The judge wasn't like, oh, you know what, I got what the prosecutor said, I'm going to close my ears, I'm not even going to look at what the other party say. Absolutely, the judge does not do that. The judge sits and, with like a very hopefully neutral stance, he evaluates both things. What were both parties are saying, right? So, did the defendant's evidence support the judge's evaluation of the case? Absolutely. You cannot even be in court unless you have two lawyers fighting each other. You need to have both parties there, right? You need to have both sides of the story. They support the judge's evaluation of the case. But did the defendant's evidence support the judge's conclusion whether it is guilty or not? No, because it pointed towards not guilty. Right? So this is a very, very, very important distinction. This is going to show up in boldface, this is going to show up in RC as well. Evaluation is the process of deciding. Right? Here you look at both sides, the prosecution and the defense, you consider everything. Whereas conclusion is the verdict. Right? Conclusion means you're only going for the winning side. So if something is supporting the evaluation, it is something that the author considered. And if something is supporting the conclusion, it means you're agreeing with the verdict. And this is not the same thing. Okay, Rohan, what is meant by supporting the argument's evaluation? It is just to give evidence that can help decide whether it goes one way or the other. Correct. It's exactly that, right? It's like a pros and cons. It's kind of some evidence which can help you make the final decision in the conclusion. That's exactly what it is. So, what is happening here is that BF2 does support evaluation, because conclusion is that plan won't work, though BF2 is pointing towards plan working, but BF2 is part of the pro side that the author is weighing against the con side. That's why BF2 is supporting the evaluation process and not the conclusion. If you look back at the argument, what is happening here? And this is like a very classic kind of like a debate structure, right? If you look back here, yeah, what is happening is there's like one plan. That, okay, you want to construct 11 huge hydroelectric power plants. The argument says that it is not massive enough. Then the argument makes a concession. The argument says that, okay, listen, it is true. Like right now, let's say in 2026, it is true that if you add 11 hydroelectric plants to the current output of 2026, the plan will be successful. That is a fact. That is true. That is accurate. We are not supposed to say that it is inaccurate. Then what does it say? It will, however, take at least 15 years to complete the project, and by then, the majority of Hazaria's current power plants will be too old to function at full capacity. What that means, it's like, let's say 2026, let's assume it says 20 years just for the sake of math. So by 2046, what will happen is that the 11 hydroelectric power plants are good enough. But currently, if let's say 100 kilowatts of electricity was produced, 50 kilowatts is produced. So even if those 11 hydroelectric plants are great today, they are not going to be great in the future. Hence, the goal will not be achieved. That is what the entire argument is saying. The argument never said that adding the project output to what Hazaria can achieve now will not be enough to meet the forecast demand for electricity. Right? Hence, if we look at the answer is E. Because E is saying both of them have the same first part, introducing a proposed plan. E is saying the second is providing evidence that is used to support the arguments. Evaluation of the plan, it absolutely is. It is basically, giving a pro and con kind of side. Second, D is saying that it's a claim that's been used to support the plan, but the argument maintains it's inaccurate. That is incorrect. We already saw that it is accurate, not inaccurate. Is this clear to everybody, or do you have any doubts? Is this clear, guys? If it is clear, we will take a slight breather and then move on to inference questions. If it is not clear, ask me. And I know Boldface is a little bit tricky. It's a little bit loaded, but awesome. Great. Tell me what you learned so far. How will you approach Boldface going forward? And if you look at what I did here, right? I looked at every single word. I looked at argument maintains inaccurate. I looked at support evaluation versus conclusion. Every single word. So that's how you're supposed to be when you look at a boldface question. It's supposed to be very, very precise. And you're supposed to ask yourself questions. Is it accurate? Is it supporting the argument? Is it supporting evaluation? Are you guys clear? Do you want to move on to a little bit easier topic, inference? If anyone wants to share what they learned, please feel free to do that. Okay, all right. So now we will start with inference questions, which is what must be true. And one thing, I do want more participation from you guys. I do want more answers, because that's how I will evaluate, whether it's clear to you guys or not. And I would love to hear some doubts so that I can resolve them live as well. So yes. Okay. Your friend cancels dinner on you for the third time in a row. What do you infer? Tell me. If someone cancels dinner on you 3 times, so what's your inference at that point of time? Come on, this is an easy question. This is not even like a lot of GMAT stuff. It's simple as that. Has no one ever cancelled on you guys 3 times in a row? Okay. So, in real life, what will we infer? We will infer that, okay, you know what, maybe there must be something going on in their life. Maybe they're dealing with some issues. Maybe they don't like me. Maybe, it could be like a bunch of different things, and those are valid inferences in real life. But that is a difference between a real life inference and a GMAT inference. So, real life inference is something which is like an educated guess, which is probably true, which makes sense, which feels right, which is like a good educated guess. But on the GMAT, there is no probably, no likely, no reasonable. There is just must. Inference means that given the fact, something that absolutely 100%, not a single doubt in your head, has to be true. If it is probably true, you're not going to get a single point, 0 points. All right, inferences has to be true. So this is a very fun thing that I want you guys to try, which is the $1,000 bet. Would you bet $1,000 of your own money, not monopoly money, your own money from your own bank, that this must be true, has to be true given the passage? Can you actually make that bet? If the answer is yes, then that could be the answer. But if even there's a 1% doubt that maybe it is something else, maybe, not something that I would bet that much money on, then it's not the answer. Okay. Inference questions don't reward leaps in logic. Inference questions reward absolute, crystal clear certainty. Okay. All right. So Raj is taller than Priya. Priya is taller than Sam. My inference is that Raj is taller than Sam. Would you bet $1,000 on this? Could this be a valid inference? Yes, no. Tell me. Is this a valid inference or not? Would you bet $1,000 on this? It is absolutely a valid inference, right? It's very obvious. If A is bigger than B, B is bigger than C, A is bigger than C. That is something which is always going to be true. That must be true, yes, no exceptions. Okay? Now, if we look at this, Raj is taller than Priya, Priya is taller than Sam. Can you draw the inference that Raj is the tallest person in the room? Can you actually bet $1,000 on that he is the tallest person in the room? Yes or no? Perfect. Okay, I'm suddenly getting a lot of comments. Okay. It is a no, right? Raj is taller than Priya, Priya is taller than Sam, but we don't know how many people are there in the room. Exactly. We don't know how many people are there in the room. What if there's a fourth person who is like 7 feet tall? Then we can't say that, oh, you know what, he's the tallest person in the room. That is a bet that you are going to lose. Okay? So that is exactly something which is a valid inference. I am just seeing this, Satyam. We planned a dinner for 3 times. Yeah, that's actually a GMAT valid inference, Satyam. That is great. Okay. So, are you ready to do an inference question? One of the reason that people get inference wrong is because they make you, the wrong answers make you feel smart. They're like, oh, you know what, with this logic it makes sense. They make you feel reasonable, they make you feel like, and usually whatever is the wrong trap answer, that could be true like 60-70% of the time, maybe even 80% of the time, but not 100% of the time. And that is the difference. But if you look exactly, yes, Aman, you can look at the assumption which is already there in the argument. I'll give you examples, but no outside assumptions. No assumptions based on your real world knowledge. And correct answers will usually make you like, feel like very boring, very obvious, very underwhelming. That this is so obvious. Why is this the answer? So if that, if you find something is extremely boring, that could very well be the answer. Okay? Perfect. Let us do we have two things in our toolkit. One is $1,000 bet, and second is be suspicious of something that's too exciting. All right, now do this question. I'm going to take myself off the screen so you can. Can you guys see the screen clearly? See the question clearly? Tell me, guys, what's your answer? Do you need more time to answer this? Because I'm not seeing any answers yet. Or is it because of a lag? I'm going to give you guys 20 more seconds and then we will move on. Okay. Okay, I can finally see all the answers now. All right, so I am getting a bunch of D and E's. I got 1, 2, 3 D's and 1, 2, 3, 4 E's. All right. Now, the company is 1% of this like 1% of the company's workforce is leaving. How much will the payroll tax revenue drop? Tell me. How much will that revenue drop if 1% of the workforce leaves? think there is. Okay. I'm not able to get your comments. I'm getting them like all at once after like 3 minutes. Okay. So if a company has like, if 1% of the company workforce is leaving, if you think that the payroll tax revenue is going to drop by 1%, you are wrong. Let us say there are 100 employees, all right? And one of those employees quits. Does your salary expense drop by 1%? You don't really know unless you know which employee left. Let's say if it was some intern who you were paying like, I don't know, like 5,000 a month, that'll be like what, 0.1% of the salary. But let us say that if the CEO left, all right, that's also like just one person, one employee, but that CEO was paid like, let's say like 20, 30 crores. That would be like 30% of the salary bill. So 1% of people does not equal 1% of salaries. And this percentage trap is one of the most common traps on the GMAT. That if you really need to make sure that when the GMAT is talking about percentages in any context, what is the numerator, what is the denominator, and 1% of people is not 1% of salaries. Okay, so the passage says that payroll tax of 2% applied on the salaries that were paid, and it says that employees amounted to 1% of all people. So the tax is on salaries, and 1% is about the employees, is about the people, and they're not the same thing. So whoever chose D, right? It says that the revenue from the payroll tax will decline by 1%. We don't know that, right? We just proved it with the CEO example that 1% of people will not equal 1% of salary. So let's say, like, because we have already been told that this is a very big finance company. So probably, the smartest finance heads were there who were like paid tons and tons of money, and they all went out. And because of that, the amount of payroll reduced by like 50%, right? They were like, let's say, the highest paid workers, right? So we don't know that, like, if it is actually declining by only 1% or not. Can we put $1,000 bet on it? Absolutely not, right? Is this clear why it is not D from the CEO example? I can't see you guys, but I'm assuming it is. Okay. Why not A? Same as that, same thing. Both of them said that 1% reduction will be in the operating budget, right? Along with that, it also talks about the tax revenue, which is only half of the budget. So the math is also wrong. Okay. Now let us switch gears. Okay. You own a coffee shop across the street from this company which is getting relocated. And the reason you started this coffee shop is because you're like, okay, you know what, this big company starting, there's going to be many, many employees here. I'm going to get a lot of business out of it. And 200 employees buy coffee from you every morning. That is something that's like basically your bread and butter is this company. And then this company relocates. What happens to your coffee shop? Tell me, what happens to your coffee shop? Absolutely. Yeah, revenue will drop. Now, let's say that I had, let's say that in your coffee shop you had two baristas, right? But because the entire thing happened, your revenue dropped. You obviously have to survive. So, could you fire a barista? Would you possibly consider firing a barista? Yes? I mean, you would have to. I mean, if you say no, then we're going to business school. We will need to make such decisions. You will need to fire the barista. So, what really happened here? Because this company relocated, there was some amount of unemployment, not from the company's workers, but unemployment based on the ecosystem around the company. Right? Like baristas get fired. Let's say that they were having a tiffin service every day. That tiffin service, those people will be unemployed. Let's say like they were going into cabs, a lot of cabs. Those cab drivers will now be unemployed. So, because the company has relocated, a lot of people who were basing their livelihood on this company would now be unemployed. Okay, with this in mind, can we say that it will not lead to any increase in unemployment rate among the city residents? If we look at the option B, which says that relocation will not lead to any increase, can you say that it will not? It definitely will, right? Why? Because there's an ecosystem, there are ripple effects, not just about the company. Okay, so B also says that it's unemployment among city residents, and passage is about people who work in the city. But the main thing is this. Now let's talk about E, which is, I think, quite a few of you did get it correct. Before, if there were 100 jobs, out of which 80 were private and 20 were public, so which means that public was like at a 20%, and after that there are 95 jobs with 75 private and 20 public. This is saying, the option is saying that the number of public jobs is same. It is as it is. The number of private jobs is decreasing. So it is very obvious math that if the number of private jobs will decrease, the proportion of public jobs will increase if the number is the same. Got it? Which is exactly what E says. And this is math. You cannot argue with math. You can actually bet $1,000 on this. Because if you are having one part the same and you're having, like, the second part decrease, the relative proportion of the first part is going to increase. No matter what, in every single possible situation. Hence, the answer is E without adding any extra assumptions, just pure math. Got it? See, none of you chose. So, what happened here? Like, the reason that so many of you did get this incorrect is the assumed chain. 1% of employees was assumed that there'll be 1% of salaries, where it was assumed that there'll be 1% of tax revenue, which was assumed that 1% of operating budget. Each of them is an assumption that the passage did not give us. First, the biggest thing, 1% of employees is not 1% of salaries. Got it? Okay. Now, tell me, is this clear to everybody? Do you have any doubts at all? And what did you learn from this? I think I'll be able to see the comments a little bit later, but still, I would like to know. Do you have any doubts at all? Okay, so this is how you basically deal with an inference question. You do the $1,000 bet. You make sure that you don't add any external information. And when you see a percentage, there should be red flags that go in your brain, because one of the most favorite traps of GMAT is basically they'll trick you. 1% of employees, 1% of salaries, close enough, right? And they'll trick you into that close enough. Okay, so when you see numbers, be very precise about what they measure, and if an answer bores you, do pay attention. Okay, now let us go to this particular question. Why are you not convinced that E is the right answer, Aman? E is the best answer, Aman? There was a mention about private and public. Wait, just give me 1 second. I'm sorry, there's something wrong with this question. I don't know if it's the incorrect question. Just give me 1 second. I'll get the right question up on the stage. I'm so sorry. Please solve this. The question was worded a little bit incorrectly. Really sorry about the confusion, guys. Just solve this one afresh. Please start dropping your answers in the comment box. I'm going to give you 30 more seconds and then I'm going to get started. D. Okay. Gotten one more D. Weirdly, why are there so many D's in this session? Okay, more from you guys. 20 last seconds. Okay, all right. So unanimously, two people have said D. Now, let me ask you guys this. What happens to the library's revenue after the refit? Will it go up, will it go down, or will it stay the same? And why? Don't worry, Ansh, we'll walk through the entire math. If you just tell me this, what do you guys think? What happens to the library's revenue after the refit? Okay, I'm again not getting what you Okay, Rohan. Can't say, depends on the usage. Got it. Anyone else wants to try and figure out what happens to the revenue? Stays the same. Okay. Why does it stay the same? No, the entire thing is about revenue. It's not about cost. May increase or decrease, depends. Okay, all right. So pretty good, guys. This was a trap question. Uh, Rohan and Satyam, both of you are right. We can't really say what happens to the library's revenue. It can increase or it can decrease depending upon the usage. Yes, Aman, we are assuming the very good, guys. We're assuming the consumption. Let us, take a quick example why that's the case, right? So I'm sure like a lot of you would have uh, gone for a gym membership, and how many of you actually use the gym membership every day? You have paid for it every single day, you know and we've all been there. We buy a gym membership, sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't use it, right? So, like, let's say it's January, New Year's has started. It is like, motivation is at an all-time high. At that time you will go, you'll go for 30, you'll go all like 30 days. Okay. So, and how much will it cost you per visit? Let's say if you paid like 3,000 bucks, it'll cost you 100 bucks per visit. Then February comes, it's cold, it's like, okay, you don't feel like going to the gym anymore, motivation is lower. So what will you do? You will only have two visits, but you've already paid 3,000. So what is your cost per visit then? It's 1,500 per visit. So in February, the gym is winning because you're not coming, so you'll not be using towels. There'll be less wear and tear in the machinery. All of that. So the gym is getting 1,500 per visit, but in January the gym only got 100 rupees per visit, right? Because it was dependent on the consumption. So the library essentially is just selling gym memberships, right? The library is basically, there's two types of card buyers, which is like the January member and the February member. Let us see. There is like, one type of very enthu card buyer who will be like, oh, you know what? I have got the card. I am going to use all 50 copies. So then they are, getting 9 cents per copy. Earlier, the library was getting 10. So basically, 9 is obviously less than 10. So the library is losing money. Okay. Now let's talk about the February member. Let's say this person only uses 30 copies. Anyway, they did not have, the requirement of 50 copies. So for them, the cost is 15 cents per copy, which is above the 10-cent break even. So here, earlier the library was making 10 cents. Now the library is making 15 cents. So here the library is winning. So depending on the number of copies made by the different users, we will decide whether the revenue is going up or down. All right. So, what is the break even point? If we look at 10 cents per copy, the break even point where the revenue is same is at exactly 90% usage, where it's like, basically you have $45, $4.50, and you're making 45 copies. So, anytime you are using less, anytime you're having less than 90% usage, you're basically, the revenue is going up for the library. And if it's 100% usage, the revenue is going down. Is this clear to everybody? Does this make sense? The conditional logic and the exact break even point. By the way, we have not gone to the options yet, right? We're just working on the argument. Now, if we go back to the options, let us, with this in mind, try this question again. I'm going to give you guys 30 more seconds. Try this question again. Think about what we just talked about, Anj. That below what percentage is the revenue going up, and below what? Yeah. Okay, Rohan, you're saying E. Shweta, E. Anyone else? Okay. We already established, right, that if a card is used at 90%, it is going to be break even. If it is used less than 90%, it's going to be like the February member of the gym, where because you're only going twice, you are using like it's costing you like 1500 each time, right? So E is something which must be true, because if something is used less than 90% of the capacity, let us say that instead of making 50 copies, you make 5 copies, right? You use it to like 10% of its capacity. It's costing you so much higher. It is costing you much more than it would have cost you to just directly pay for those 5 cents, right? So E is the right answer here. So I'll just explain a little bit why. No one chose B, but I'm also drinking water. Yeah, no one chose B, but a lot of people would choose B. It was a common incorrect answer. It says no library patrons will increase the total number of photocopies. Again, you will not. You're betting that not even a single person will do that. There would be someone who would be doing that, right? It is too extreme. Why is it not D? So here, pay attention. And specifically pay attention. It says revenue will decrease unless most patrons choose to use the coin operated machine rather than purchasing the prepaid cards. So if we are basically making it, in like a simple, we're putting it in a simple way. What does it say? D is saying that cards always lose money for the library and only coin machines save money. That's why it's saying now that unless you supplement it with the coin, revenue is going to decrease. So the entire option D is saying that because of this, revenue is decreasing. But we already proved that the revenue is dependent on the consumption of the card. Right? D says that cards always lose money, and we just proved that they did not. B could happen. There are 3 scenarios that could happen. One of those scenarios is D. But could be true is not must be true. Okay. Again, why is E? Because if the administrator's plan is adopted, revenue will increase. In any situation, E is not going to be false. Why? Because it is a mathematical certainty. And that's why you can bet on it without losing sleep. So here you don't need to go into feelings, you don't need to go into, maybe you don't have to go into guessing. You can just use pure math and you can get the actual answer. Okay, any doubts, guys? We are actually ahead of time. Yes. You guys think about me. I'm the one who's talking so much. Yes, tell me. Any doubts? Tell me what you learned so far. If you're liking the session so far, please press the like button as well. What did you learn so far about inference? Any doubts at all? Yeah. Good, Aman. You have to, I wouldn't say, I mean, yeah, they are, like, they could be correct if the argument requires like an extreme inference. But again, when there's something which is very extreme, you have to be very careful. That's the thing. But you shouldn't just be like, oh, you know what, this is extreme cut. You have to think through that as well. Not to assume stuff, just go with pure math. Yes, absolutely. Thing is that a lot of people, like, one of the reasons why CR seems a little bit harder is because it's very abstract. In quant, it's pretty straightforward. Like, either something is the answer or something is not the answer. But in CR, it definitely is like, oh, you know what, this could be the answer. This could also be the answer. So in this situation, if you put math into it, it kind of makes it very black and white. So that's why, if you would have noticed, even in the last session, I added a lot of math. So wherever I could. So yeah, wherever you can, just add math. And I'm saying it as a doctor, a non-math background, that you should add math. Okay. A and C, none of you chose. But again, only is also an extreme thing, that only those library patrons will do that. And yeah, a number of library patrons will decrease Nobody is, saying that. Okay, so looking about how can we have such laser focus looking onto that one particular thing, not getting into the trap. Uh, Again, you have to be very clear. Like, do the $1,000 bet thing. Like, could you actually bet with yourself that this is the correct answer that you pick? That is something which is, which could actually be really really helpful for you. So, and if you try to put things into math, you will realize that, okay, this is what is actually happening. And the thing is that the questions that I ask you guys in the session, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. So, the more you ask yourself these questions, you will realize what the answers are. And that will kind of help you. So, yeah, pre thinking is essentially what it is. Okay, perfect. Right. So, what are key takeaways? Pre-think before the answer choices. Extreme words are red flags. I'm not saying that they're always wrong, but you have to be more careful when there's an extreme choice. Could be true is not must be true. Even if it is true 90% of the times, it's still not the right answer. It has to be true 100% of the times. And yeah, boring is, correct. Don't be like, oh, you know what, this one is too boring. It seems so obvious. That's the point. In strength and weaken assumption, sometimes you'll find like, oh wow, like like a aha moment, like, oh, you know what, this is such a smart answer. In inference, it'll be like, okay, you know what, this is something which is just the most obvious based on what the passage has said. Okay. Now, oh, we're already at evaluate questions. Great. So we are at evaluate questions. We are done with two-thirds of the session. If we want, we can take a small break, but if you guys have the energy, we can continue. Okay, let us go. Evaluate questions. So essentially, an evaluate questions is about what would you need to know. So if we talk about, if I talk about our weekend strength and assumption. So in weekend questions, what was your job? What did you have to do? You're basically being like the defense attorney, and you have to like tear the argument apart. In strengthen, your job is to build the case. You are the prosecutor, and in evaluate, you are the judge. So it's like, okay, you know what, you need one more piece of information before you can decide. But the steps are the same. The step number one, find the conclusion. Number two, you have to pre-think the logical gap in the argument. That is super important. And number three, where in weaken you went for things that exploited the gap. In strengthen, where you went for things that filled the gap. Here you are testing the gap. Okay, so it's very very similar to strengthen and weaken, and just you just have like this one extra step. And at the end of it, this is very, very important. If you're doing an evaluate question, do keep this in mind. I think this will make evaluate questions very simple because the logic is really simple that if you are getting strengthened right, if you are getting weakened right, you must get evaluate right because evaluate is nothing but a mixture of strengthen and weaken. Okay, so for every single answer, so evaluate usually will have answers which will be like framed as a question. So it should be that if a yes answer weakens or strengthens and a no answer weakens or strengthens, so it will be in the opposite direction. That is the correct answer. So in evaluate, the yes and no should be that one is weakening, one is strengthening. If both of them weaken, like let's say you have a question and a yes weakens and a no weakens, that's just a weakening, right? And if yes and no have no impact, that's irrelevant. Okay, let us go to the next question. So find the conclusion, pre-think, and match to the choices. Confirm with the yes no test. Okay, solve this question, and I will be here. Please lock in your answer choices. 10 last seconds before I get started. If you guys need extra time, please let me know. Okay. We have A. All right. Anyone else? We have one B. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Okay. So let us move on before I reveal the answer. So, what is the entire argument about? Okay, so there was declining ad sales for several years. That's essentially what happened before. So, because of that, there was a reorganization of Salesforce from something that was geographic based, something that was industry based, and then after that, revenue increased. So, if you remember from our strength and weekend assumption session, if it's like okay, something was there, something came, and so because of that, there was some cause and effect relationship. What is the question that you need to ask yourself? Possibly, did something else cause the increase? Was the action, what we did, was that responsible for the increase, or something else? We got one D also, right? So, if you look at step two, think about it. What else could cause the revenue to go up? Other than the reorganized sales force, what are the other things that could potentially cause the revenue to increase? Think about it. Take a beat. Either there could be more readers, because of that the revenue increased, or better economy, because of that, there's more businesses advertising. Maybe you raised ad prices, so you have the same revenue, more money. Maybe competitor shut down. So essentially, what are we doing here? The same thing that we did in strengthen and weak, right? We are pre-thinking what else could cause the revenue to go up. Now, let us look at option number B. Has the circulation of Greenville Times increased substantially in the last 2 years? If yes, that okay, circulation has increased, then the revenue is from the readership, not the reorganization. So that would weaken. If it is no, circulation did not increase. So that means that there is no alternative explanation for it. Right? The reorganization is actually does seem to be the cause of it. So one thing weakened, and one yes weakened and no strengthened. So B is something that passed the yes no test. Is this clear to you guys? Okay. Let me look at the other answer choice. A lot of you guys said D and A. I'm going to look at both of those in detail. What is A saying? A is saying that 2 years ago, what proportion of the Greenville Times total revenue was generated by advertising sales? Let's say it was a very big proportion. Okay. Let us say it was like 80%, like a very huge proportion. So what? Why would that cause an advertising sale increase? Or let us say it was very less. Let's say it was 20%. Again, why would that cause like an advertising sales increase? We are given an absolute number. We have been told that revenue from our advertising sales increased. What happens to the other branches? What are the other ways of generating revenue? We are not concerned about that. That is not having any bearing on our the cause effect analysis whatsoever. And because this argument is a cause effect argument, what is the first thing that we do? We look at figuring out what could else could explain the result. What could the cause and effect be? Okay. Now, why is it B? Before the reorganization, sales difficult, so had sales representatives found it difficult to keep up with relevant developments in all types of businesses. Again, so this is conflating two things, right? Difficulty with performance. I can find my job difficult and I can still be good at my job. Similarly, I can find my job easy and be bad at my job. All right. So doesn't matter. Let's say the the representatives had found it difficult to keep up with it. Doesn't matter. They still could have been really good sales representatives. They could still have done a good job. And let us say before the reorganization, they did not find it difficult to keep up with it. Again, they could have been bad. Despite not finding it difficult, they could have been bad employees, right? So the difficulty level does not say anything about their performance, and that's why you have to be extremely precise when you're looking at a particular CR question. Okay, so the answer here is B, which is the yes no test. So Ansh, yeah, again, grind a lot, yes, but what you need to do is, okay, so this is for all of you, not just Ansh. I'm going to just put this up. So this is for all of you. So if you are facing any difficulty in any of these things, especially conclusion, strength and weaken assumption, what you should do is make a Google Sheets where you are labeling conclusion, you're labeling logical gap, and you're labeling pre-thinking and what must my answer choice do. And for the two options that you're confused between, you are putting it in the sheet that, okay, what will this option do to my answer choice and what will the other option do. What that will do is it'll force you to follow the process. And if you follow the process really, really correctly, you are going to you are going to like basically improve. But let us say that you have a problem in any part of the process. Let us say that you have a problem in conclusion or you have a problem in pre-thinking. Basically, putting it down will help isolate what your exact problem is. And if you guys want to go into any of this in detail, because again, I have not had time to go into everything in like an extreme amounts of detail. If you just want to focus on conclusion or pre-thinking, so in our GMAT self-paced course, there's a bunch of videos covering only those things. So once you isolate what exactly you need to work on, you can actually go in and basically do that concept work first in a narrow area. So with lesser questions, you will essentially be able to have better output. Okay. All right. I hope this is clear to everybody. So essentially, all of this is the same family: assumption, weaken, strengthen, evaluate. Assumption, basically, you name the gap; weaken, you break the gap; strengthen, you fill the gap; and evaluate, you test the gap. That's it. Okay. So this is your evaluate toolkit, and let us do this question. Before we do it, what have you learned so far in the entire session? What have you guys learned so far across boldface, across inference, in evaluate? We are going much faster than I thought that we would go. So yeah, we have a lot of time. What have you learned so far? And if you have any doubts in the entire thing, what are those doubts? Like I would love to help address them. Please put that in the chat, and meanwhile the rest of you can solve this question. Yeah, I love that. Trust pure math blindly. Stick to the argument and conclusion. Yes. Don't put real life stuff, Be very, very precise on what the conclusion is. Okay, so we have gotten two B's so far. What about the rest of you? A, B, C, D, E. Come on, this is the last question. So this is, please do participate. Please do drop your answers. Okay. Three of you think it's B. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So, okay, so now that three of you did think it's B, it is actually the correct answer. So if we basically look at this entire argument, right? So it says that a certain cultivated herb is one of a group of closely related plants that thrive in soil with high concentration of metals. So who is thriving in metal-rich soil? Just one herb or the whole group of herbs? It is the whole group of herbs, right? It says a certain cultivated herb is one of a group of herbs that thrives in soil with a high metal concentration. Okay, so the entire group is doing it here. So what exactly happened here? Like if we look at the gap in the argument, what did the researcher do? The actual thing was that the entire group is thriving in metal rich soil. The researchers studied one herb. They found out that, okay, you know what, this herb produces lots of histidine, and they concluded that it is the key feature that allows it and its relatives to thrive. So they studied one and they made a claim that explains all of them. So it's basically like, figuring out that, okay, you know what, let's say 10 students scored 700 plus on the GMAT. A researcher studies one of them and discovers that, oh, you know what, this one person wore a blue shirt to the exam. And then they publish that, oh, you know what, blue shirts are the reason that you will get successful in GMAT. Blue shirts are the key features. Now, what would you check? You would check what happened to the other nine. Did they also wear blue shirts? Like, what is the commonality between them? And if you check, some did, some did not, and all of them scored 700 plus. So blue shirts are not it. Okay, maybe the common thing was that they all used GMAT. That could be the thing, right? So if we look at like the yes no test, so what is B saying? B is asking, okay, whether the closely related group of plants also produce histidine in large quantities. If it is a yes, the others also produce histidine, it gives more proof to the fact that it is a pattern across the group. But if it is a no, that okay, you know what, others do not produce histidine, so histidine is like a blue shirt. It's an incidental finding. It is not the cause of them thriving in metal rich soil, right? So it answers the two-way street, the two-way test perfectly accurately. So C and E are very common traps in this particular question. This is also a 705 to 805 level question. So whether histidine is the only amino acid or whether the amount of histidine increases as the herb matures, all of that uses the passage's vocabulary to feel relevant, but it's not the entire logic. So you really need to follow the logic and not the vocabulary. A and D. A says whether the herb can thrive in soil without high metal concentration. Again, it doesn't explain why it survives in the metal rich soil. Our entire point is it's not answering the question that we have asked, right? It's not matching our pre thinking. D says whether the concentration of metals affects skin production. Again, that's about the herb's effect on soil, answering a different question. And this is a very common trap in strengthen and weaken questions as well, or even assumption where it is answering a different question. Or it is, like kind of plugging a different logical gap and not the main logical gap of the argument. Okay, perfect. So we are done with the session much, much, much faster than expected. So what do we do in boldface? We x-ray the argument, we find the different roles, and conclusion is the anchor. What do we do in inference argument? We have $1,000 bet. You know, just because something is boring, it doesn't mean that you remove it. When you talk about percentages and numbers, you have to be very, very precise there. What do we do in evaluate? You basically do pre-thinking, the exact same thing with a yes no test. So again, these are not tips and tricks. These are not something, which may work, something which might give a result. This is a system. This is something that if you follow it on every single question, you are going to get good results. Okay. Perfect. And yeah, one more thing that I would want to address. A lot of people think that, if you're started at a very low percentile, you cannot improve. We have had a lot of success stories where we have had people who have improved from 14 percentile to up to the 91st percentile. So, again, if you think verbal is something which is abstract, it is not. Follow the system, follow the process, and you can definitely get to where you need to be. Perfect. Now it's time to go practice. I would recommend start with Boldface. Go on Neuron, look up Boldface questions, and do them. I will put the link in the comment down there on exactly doing it. And before you go, I want to hear from you guys. Final one. What did you learn from the session? And did you like the session? What are the key takeaways from the session? What did you learn in the entire session? And if you liked the session, if you did not like the session, if you have any doubts at all. And oh, by the way, if any of you are going to take the GMAT soon and have any doubts regarding study plan, regarding strategy, regarding overall how to do better, you can ask them as well. All right, then. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for participating. Um, Thank you for being there with me for 2 hours and 16 minutes. And I really hope that you got something out of value that you're going to take today with yourself. And yeah, that's it. All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Practice and have a great week. So